broken Kanu's way, and Dahui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans, and welcome back to a new episode of Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. And it's a double headers today because I'm talking about two games rather than just the singular that I usually talk about. I'm talking about the Crystal Palace game at home and the Newcastle game. More the Newcastle game because that's the more enjoyable one, but I have to go over the Palace game as well. I'll also touch on departures of Ozil and Sokratis. Both have basically had their contracts terminated. Everyone has announced Ozil has departed apart from Arsenal Football Club themselves. Sokratis has been announced to be departing. So I'll briefly touch on them both as well as taking your questions. So let's get into it. So the first game I'll be talking about today is obviously the 0-0 draw at home with Crystal Palace. I won't spend too much time on this because it doesn't deserve the greatest amount of analysis, because a 0-0 draw can be a bit dull, but I think there are some aspects to this game that I think can be brought forward into the Newcastle game as well. So firstly, let's go over the starting lineup. Bernd Leno was in goal, Hector Bellerin, Rob Holding, David Luiz and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. That was the big change because Kieran Tierney was out injured, which was obviously a massive worry for many Arsenal fans and a massive panic, because you obviously don't want Kieran Tierney out for very long because he's such an important fixture in the side and such an important fixture in how we attack. So Maitland-Niles at left back, obviously Kolasinac has gone out on loan, so he's deployed as the first option, it seems. We had Granit Xhaka and Danny Spires in the centre of the park, with Aubameyang, Smith Rowe, Bukayo Saka and Lacazette out front. So the front four was as you would expect, and obviously it was a bit surprising that Tierney was out. I think it questioned the manager's decision to play him 120 minutes in the FA Cup. Obviously we needed him because he performed very well in that game, but I think that could have been the game for rotation. But nevertheless, Maitland-Niles came in. He wasn't really good, Maitland-Niles, so the decision again to play Tierney for 120 minutes was not a good one by Mikel Arteta. And I think credit Crystal Palace, because I think they are a very good side defensively. Roy Hodgson knows how to set up a good defensive team, and he's done it for years. The wily old fox he is. He will do it and continues to do it as long as he's in management, really. And he's done really well with Palace to set him up. But the difference between Palace and Newcastle is they had a threat on the break. Obviously, when you have players like Wilfried Zaha, Eze, they're always going to be a threat because they're tricky players to defend. And Palace had the best chances in the first half. Tompkins hit the bar. Benteke produced a really good save from Bernd Leno. And in theory, they should have been going in ahead because they had 9 shots to our 2. They only had 2 on target. We also had 2 on target. But it was much more Palace's game than ours. We struggled to create throughout the first half, and I think the team in general were playing too slow. I think when you have players like David Luiz and Granit Xhaka, you do tend to take a few more touches than is necessary. I think when we get to the Newcastle game later, I think I'll talk about one goal in particular and the difference between Partey, for example, and Granit Xhaka. We went in at 0-0 and we made an early change, well, 2 early changes within the first 20 minutes of the half, with Pepe coming on for Maitland-Niles, who, like I said earlier, he struggled at left back. He made Aubameyang basically come outside more as well, so he was stuck on the wing, so he wasn't using Aubameyang to his best ability as well. So the smart change was moving Bukayo Saka to left back and then putting Pepe on the right wing. Pepe was quite ineffective in the game, and Saka had been moved further away from goal, so that took away our threat as well. So it was a bit of a difficult one for Mikel Arteta to judge. Then he brought on Thomas Partey for Dani Ceballos, who I thought Dani Ceballos actually had quite a good game, and I think Xhaka had a good game. I think Xhaka was really bad on the ball, but defensively, Granit Xhaka was fantastic. But I think the difference between Partey is that he's just so good at tackling, and he just doesn't seem like he's going to be intercepted or taken off the ball very easily. He produced 4 tackles in 20 minutes of play, which is pretty extraordinary when you think about it. And SofaScore here, which is the site I'm using, have got him down at a 7.2 rating, which is quite good for a 20-minute cameo. But we just couldn't break Palace down, and the game finished 0-0. And I think it was one of those games maybe that produced a lot of fatigue with the squad. Obviously, it was the second game of the week. We had done 120 minutes against Newcastle in the FA Cup. I know a lot of those players had been rested, but you still had Aubameyang playing, you still had Tierney playing, and you still had Leno in goal. It just wasn't Xhaka playing. He came on in the second half. It just wasn't a game where Arsenal seemed like they were going to win, and I don't think we deserved to win. I think Palace probably deserved to win, so it was a bit of a worrying game. But I think it was one game that I think people went a bit too overboard on. I think the reaction on social media was that, we're awful, the run that we were on was fake, sort of thing. And I don't necessarily agree. Even the best sides sometimes have off days. I mean, look at Liverpool at the moment. They haven't scored in a while, and they're the reigning champions of the league. And even when we were playing good football under Arsene Wenger, we used to have these games. I remember a game in 13-14. We had just come back from a 5-1 defeat against Liverpool at Anfield, and we settled for a 0-0 draw against Manchester United at home. So I know Manchester United are a different calibre of opposition to Crystal Palace, but I think the point still stands that there will be games where you draw them, and there will be games where you lose. And especially with this side, which is not complete at the moment, that there are some games like this. So it finished 0-0. The statistics, I mean, we had 67% possession, 11 shots, 4 on target. So it wasn't the best game. And I think we just needed a quicker tempo, all in all, really, from the team. And we just didn't have that throughout the game. So it was a bit disappointing, but I think we can be sort of satisfied that we came out just with a draw and at least got a point, because I think last year we would have lost that game, or even a month or two ago we would have lost that game. But let's talk about the more exciting game, the 3-0 win at home to Newcastle United. Now, let's start with the team selection. Bernd Leno starts in goal. Cedric at right back, so there's a bit of rotation at right back. And Cedric justified his selection because he had a really good game. Rob Holding and David Luiz continue, so there was no place for Gabriel. He is back, but there's still no place. Kieran Tierney returned. There was a bit of worry, obviously, about the MRI scan that he got last week, but he was fine and back into the starting lineup. He's obviously Mikel Arteta's probably his favourite player, if we're being honest. Thomas Partey, his first start since the defeat in the North London derby, as well as Granit Xhaka in midfield, and I'll talk about them both in a bit. And then the same front four as the Palace game, so Aubameyang on the left, Smith Rowe at 10, Bukayo Saka on the right, and Alexandre Lacazette up front. And this was a much better game in the second half. I think the first half was a bit more of the same, but I think we had much more shots compared to the Palace game. So I think we had 2 shots in the whole half against Crystal Palace, whereas in this half we had 7. So it's much bigger difference compared to the Palace game, and which is obviously much better because you want to have more shots, because that demonstrates that we are trying to get goals and trying to score and create chances. A lot of people were giving pelters to Aubameyang in the first half because he obviously missed that sitter, if you will. I know he would have been angry about that miss, but I mean, it is a difficult chance. It comes off the goalkeeper. He's wrong-footed by hit. He hits it with his left foot and it's centimetres from going in. It hits the post. So it is an unlucky sense. And what you wanted from him was to keep continuing to get chances. He had one more shot in the first half, which was good. He finished the whole game with 5 shots in total, 3 off target. But the 2 he had on target were both goals. So that just shows the efficiency. I think people are being harsh with him, though. I think people are now expecting Aubameyang to do things that he's never historically done in his career. I think from left wing, I think he's not going to be someone who dribbles past 4 players and then smacks it in top corner. He's always been a player who's got a high quantity of shots. For us to use him correctly, we have to create chances for him. And I mean, as you can see in this game, we created a good amount of chances for him and he scored them. That's the difference, really, is that he's got to be having chances created for him. He's not going to create them out of nothing. Yes, I know people will point towards the Fulham goal this year, the Chelsea goal in the FA Cup final, the Liverpool goal in the Community Shield. But those are isolated incidents, and historical data backs it up that he was much better when he was getting a high quantity of shots and high quality chances, and that's what we've got to continue doing with Aubameyang. So we went in 0-0 at half time, and I think it was unjust. I think we were unlucky to go in 0-0 half time. Obviously we had that Aubameyang chance, but I think we were the better side. I think the commentators were a bit harsh about Newcastle posing a threat, and I didn't really understand it, but the game was there for us for the taking, and it wasn't long, within 5 minutes, before we had a goal. And the goal itself is simple, but it's all done by Thomas Partey and his directness. Now, the reason why I mentioned earlier about Granit Xhaka and his tendency to pass slowly, and make no mistake, Granit Xhaka had a good game in this game, but I think he tends to slow the game down, which is fine, but sometimes against these deep blocks, you want someone quick. You want someone to produce the ball snappy, so when we do get the chance to break, which is very rare, that we can create danger. It's going to be much more dangerous when you're creating chances quicker than if you slow down play and then try and build it up. So Partey gets the ball, plays a really nice pass to Aubameyang going forward. Aubameyang dribbles, goes on his left and beats Carl Darlow in goal, and it's 1-0 to the Arsenal, and it was a good goal. He had a similar chance in the first half where the Newcastle defender, I think it was Jamal Lascelles at this point, covered him really well and shepherded him out, and so he couldn't do that. I think his shot got blocked. But in this instance, he does really well, and because he has more space to dribble in, Newcastle have allowed him a bit more space, then he's allowed to go in his left foot and confidently finish. He's got a good left foot. I mean, the finish in the FA Cup final shows that. So it was a good finish, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans were relieved because we had scored, obviously, against a deep block team, and we'd also got Aubameyang a goal. He's obviously struggled this season, but this was a big moment for him, and I'm really pleased about it. So that was 1-0, and what is different at the moment and what needs to be praised, and hopefully this little period can bring more of it, is that when we go 1-0 up, we don't sit on the 1-0. We want to go for more goals, and that's what we did. Again, it was quite a direct goal. I mean, I'm not saying it was a long ball goal, but it was as few passes as possible. I think it was played out from Leno into Xhaka, and then I think Xhaka passes it to Aubameyang. Aubameyang passes it to Smith Rowe, and Smith Rowe, who had an excellent game, he was my man of the match. I know Sky gave it to Aubameyang on the day, but he was my man of the match. He was fantastic on the day, and I'll speak about it a bit more later. And Smith Rowe goes down the left, and just his touches and his dribbling, his close control was fantastic, and gets away from the defender, leaves him for dead, and then passes the ball to Saka, who finishes really confidently, and Saka's in a good goal scoring vein at the moment. So firstly, let's credit Smith Rowe, because again, I think the touches and the control are really good, and I think he had a good game in this because he just seems so mature for his age. He just looks at home in the Premier League, and it makes you wonder why we just didn't start him from the beginning, because I think he has produced these kind of performances in the Europa League under Unai Emery. And yes, I know he's had injury problems, but this is a player that is going to go to the very top, and I'm very, very happy that he's getting the chances, because I think I said in the first podcast, we are lacking a lot of creators, and I think you'll see a massive difference between Arsenal when you have one creator in compared to the zero we had at the time. And now Smith Rowe's come in and has created 10 chances in the games he's played. Only Bruno Fernandes has created more. And he's just been a revelation, and there are now reports that he's been offered a new contract, a new £40,000 a week contract, which is really, really sensible at this stage. I know he's got a few years left on his deal. I think maybe his deal runs out in 2023, but getting him tied down this early is important, and I'm glad Arsenal are doing it. So he's been a revelation, and it's really nice to see another HALE boy doing the bits in the Premier League for Arsenal. And obviously the other one is Bukayo Saka. I mean, what more can you say about him? Has been a revelation on the right-hand side, and I think he's ending Nicolas Pepe's Arsenal career, because I think Saka is undisputably the first choice on that right wing now. And you can debate who's second choice, Willian or Pepe, but make no mistake, it's the HALE graduate who's doing well compared to the £72 million signing. And obviously I'm being a bit harsh. Pepe hasn't had as many chances as Saka this season, and if he did, maybe he would be performing, but there's a noticeable difference, and I think it's just because Bukayo Saka can use his right foot much more compared to Pepe. Pepe is very left-footed, and you can tell. So Bukayo Saka being a bit more two-footed, he's not obviously Santi Cazorla in terms of two-footedness, but he's done really well with his right foot, and it gives a bit more danger to the left and right-hand side, because I think he can go either way. He can go in or out, and I think that's really encouraging. And his goal was really well taken. It was a finish that Pepe actually done in the Newcastle game last season. Saka was the assister at that time with that beautiful nutmeg, and it's a finish and it's a goal that you would like to see more, is Arsenal players running into the box, getting onto cutbacks like that. And Smith Rowe and Saka have combined very well recently together, and they seem to have a really good partnership. And attacking football is all about relationships and partnerships. Saka and Smith Rowe seem to have a really good partnership, and that's something to build on. Once you have that kind of partnership, you can build around those partnerships, and hopefully Arsenal can get it right in the transfer market and really build around those two players, because they seem like they're going to do really good things for Arsenal, and I'm really encouraged by it. But let's get on to the third goal. And I mentioned earlier that Cedric had a really good game. He completely justified his selection. He was better in the second half, I think, than the first half. But what I like about him is he's really balanced, and it shows it in this goal, is that he makes a really good interception from Newcastle. To be fair, it's not really the best ball out from the defender. he combines with Saka. Saka passes it back to him. He bursts down the line, nearly goes out, but it doesn't, and he pulls a cutback, and Aubameyang's not going to miss those chances, and those are the chances that we should be creating more for him. So it's all credit to Cedric, and he's had a really good game, and now it's a selection dilemma for Mikel Arteta. Does he go back with his so-called first choice in Hector Bellerin, who hasn't been the best this season? I think he's been better than other people have said, but defensively he's definitely taken a step back. Or do we go with Cedric, the more balanced one, but maybe not the ideal one going forward compared to Hector Bellerin? And that was that, 3-0, and Arsenal made a couple more changes. Willian came on for Aubameyang, didn't really do much, to be honest, and Martinelli returned in this game, which was nice to see, and we rounded out the game 3-0, and it was a good result, and it's now 13 points from possible 15 the last 5 games. I think when you looked at this fixture schedule, you would have taken that, and I think I have, and a lot of fans have. I think a lot of fans were disappointed with the Palace game, but I think the Newcastle game has made it quickly forgotten. So we're into the top half now. I know Villa have got 4 games in hand on us, so it could change quickly, but at least we're in the top half. At least that's something to look at. It's a start. We're not world beaters. We're not even top 6 challengers yet, but it's a start, and as long as we keep this run going, then the optimism around the fan base will continue. But it is only a start, and we just have to continue this run of form, and hopefully we can. But I've got a question about fixtures coming up, so I'll talk about that a bit more in the questions part. Just to round up, I'll go over the XG of the game. And it finished Arsenal 2.5 to Newcastle's 0.16. So it was a comprehensive win, and we deserved to win this game. Newcastle were poor, but we've gone through games this season where we haven't beaten poor opposition. So this is the test now, is to go and see if we can beat better opposition. But I'll talk about that more when we get into the questions. Now, when I'm recording this, it's not been 100% confirmed, but I'm going to talk about it anyway, and that is Mesut Ozil leaving Arsenal after 8 years at the club, or 7.5 years, if you want to be exact. But one, that's a real sad way to end. He's obviously going to Fenerbahce. We've terminated his contract 6 months early. We've paid him off. And it is a sad end to his Arsenal career. But let's not forget some of the countless memories he brought us. Now, personally, for me, he is one of my favourite players of all time. And I've lived through the Invincibles and such, and those players are on that list, but Ozil is also on that list. Some of the football he played is some things that I hadn't seen other players do, and he brought an era of fun back to my Arsenal supporting days, because I went through a period between 2008 to about 2011 where I didn't really have as much interest as I do now with Arsenal, and that's funnily enough because we're much worse now compared to then. But 2013 was the start of, oh yeah, maybe Arsenal are actually going to compete going back to the top of the table, and Ozil was a lot of that belief. And it's a shame we didn't bring him a league title, but he obviously came in and it brought us trophies in terms of 3 FA Cups. I don't think we can count the 4th one. Countless memories. I mean, there's the Ludogorets goal, there's the Liverpool walking in the Winter Wonderland goal, the Napoli, his first goal, even such underrated goals like the Newcastle volley or the Chelsea goal, the Man United goal. These are all moments he produced, and when he was on song, he was absolutely unstoppable, and I really loved watching him play for Arsenal, and it is a shame to see him gone. It is the right call because he wasn't being used. We were paying him a ton. By all accounts, he wasn't the best in terms of, let's just say that Arteta had issues with him, and maybe we'll never know what those issues were, but he's a really good human being as well, and I think Arsenal fans will miss him in time. I think it's still a bit raw now, but I will never forget some of the memories he brought me. So thank you, Meza, and I wish you the very best of luck in Turkey. I hope you absolutely smash it, and hopefully we can see you back at the Emirates one day. And obviously the other departure is Sokratis, whose contract has been terminated, so he'll get a little bit less loving as Meza did, because Sokratis hasn't been here as long and hasn't brought as many memories, but he was always a model professional. I think his first season was actually quite good for us, but after that I don't think he was very good. I think last season he was used sparingly, especially when Arteta came in, and I think the writing was on the wall when he was left out of the Premier League squad this season. But he never complained. He was always professional. He even played some under 23s to keep some fitness up. So he leaves with some good faith with the Arsenal fans, and I think we all wish him well wherever he's going to end up, and hopefully he's again back at the Emirates soon enough and we can give him a proper goodbye with all the fans. So thanks Sokratis for everything. I mean, he loved the slide tackle and celebrating it. It was fantastic. So, okay, so let's take your questions. I have a lot of questions here because I asked the questions originally after the Palace game, so I've got a few questions here. So there's a joint couple here. One from Billy Johnson 101 and from @Priceball on Twitter. And Billy asks, does Xhaka steal a living by making some angry faces and pointing at space while kind of being ass? Whereas Priceball asks, is Xhaka really that bad? So it's different ends of the spectrum, really. And I think Granit Xhaka is better than ass, but I don't think he's incredible as some fans can make him out to be. He's basically a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. What Xhaka possesses is a really wide range of passing ability, but I think his passes are slow, and obviously he doesn't have the athleticism of a Thomas Partey, for example. So he is always going to struggle in games where he's targeted. But credit him, he's been under 3 different managers now, and all 3 managers have continuously played him. Now, obviously, Arteta's had lack of options. Emery continues to play him over Torreira or Guendouzi. And Wenger, I mean, he had injury issues, but Xhaka would play instead of Cazorla sometimes or Wilshere. And he produced a really good partnership with Aaron Ramsey in the back 3. So I think there is some merit for him to be in the side, but I think in the long term, we probably need to upgrade. It won't be this summer because I think El Neni will go, Spice will return to Real Madrid. I think Guendouzi will go, I think Torreira will go. So the only 2 central midfielders, well 3 if you count Joe Willock, but the only 2 are Partey and Xhaka. So we're going to need him next season, even if we bring in extra bodies. So I just don't think he's going to be a title-winning central midfielder, and that's fine. He's fine now, but I don't think if we want to get where we want to be in the next few years, he should be the type of midfielder we have in central midfield. So I'm happy for his performances. Currently, he's returned really well since the red card against Burnley, but I think eventually we should upgrade on him, maybe in the next 2 years. So thank you for your questions, guys. So we've got another question here from @AlexAFC, and he asks, best AM option that we could sign now and best option we could go for in the summer. I think the best option we could go for now is probably Martin Odegaard. He's available on loan. I think it might not happen because I think he wants to stay in Spain, but I think if there was any way it could happen, I think that would be fantastic. I think Arsenal need to beware of spending money for someone who's not right. We've done it countless times before. So I think Arsenal need to be careful with who they're going to sign. And I think this is a really good time because obviously Smith Rowe's coming in and ideally you probably want him first choice. But we do need another creator just in case Smith Rowe gets injured, because if he does, I mean, we're playing Willian at 10 and nobody wants to see that. So I think Odegaard now, and then maybe in the summer you go for a Buendia or Brandt. I mean, Buendia would probably be cheaper in the summer, especially if Norwich don't get promoted. Brandt, I don't think is going to leave in January because of the injury to Axel Witsel. But maybe in the summer, maybe he will be surplus to requirements. So it is difficult. Buendia also will be a bit more easier to get because the Euros are in the summer. And Buendia is obviously not from Europe, he's Argentinian. So it is something to bear in mind. So they're my two options. Odegaard now for 6 months and then Buendia in the summer. Next question is from @SebAFC. And he asks, what do you think we should do regarding the contract of Lacazette? Should we sell this summer, extend, or let him go for free? Now, I wouldn't let him go for free. No chance. I think he's worth something in the market for someone. And I think we need to find who wants him and possibly sell him. I think he's had a decent season this year. It's not an incredible season, but he is our top scorer with 10 goals in all competitions this season. I think keeping him would be a mistake and offering him a new contract. So I think selling him, because I think he's got 1 year left on his deal when he gets to the summer, is probably the best thing. Hopefully we can get a decent amount of money. I don't know what Lacazette is going to be worth in this current market, in a COVID market, but hopefully we can get a decent chunk for him in the summer and hopefully we can replace him well, because obviously we would have Aubameyang, we would have Eddie and Martinelli as striking options, but we probably need another one just in case, and Martinelli and Aubameyang will obviously cover left wing as well, so it is a bit of a stretch, but hopefully selling Lacazette we can get a decent chunk and we can fund a replacement. So thanks for your question, Seb. Just 2 more questions now, and one is from regular contributor @AFC_Jack, and he asks, not really about the games, but I find football getting a bit dry because of no fans. It's finally taking its toll. What do you think and how do you feel about it still? It's a really good question. I think football is missing the fans. I know we had a very brief period where fans did return. We had 2 games, the Rapid Vienna and Burnley home games. And I think fans are definitely missed. I think we definitely need fans back, and I think football is lost without them, really. I think they create so much of the moment of a goal, the euphoria of a goal, that I think it's just not the same in the crowd. Now, I think there's nothing more evidenced by the Aubameyang FA Cup winner, is that if the fans were there, they would have gone crazy, and it's just a shame they weren't. So fans are missed, and I think it is getting a bit dry. I think it is not helped by the amount of fixtures that are being played as well. It is a lot of football and a massive football overload, but I think if the fans were there, it would have been much easier. But hopefully they'll be back soon. I don't think they'll be back for the rest of the season at least, but maybe after that we can see fans back in the stadium and creating a good atmosphere. I feel sorry for Arteta and some signings like Partey and such, because they never played in front of fans. I know Arteta did, but he very rarely did compared to the amount of games he hasn't. So I feel sorry for them, because I don't think you get a true gauge of what the fans think of you unless you're playing in front of them. So that is a bit of something to consider as well. So I miss the fans, and hopefully they'll be back soon. The final question is from @Wayne'sWorld20, and it's 2 questions basically within one. So how do you see the next 5 Premier League games going? And he asks, who is the player of the season at this stage and why? So our next 5 Premier League games are Southampton away, which is on Tuesday next week after the Southampton FA Cup game. And then Manchester United at home, Wolves away, Aston Villa away, and then Leeds at home. And then it doesn't get any easier at the end of Feb with Man City at home, Leicester away. So it is a tricky period, and I think fans will be probably expecting the worst, which is obviously a shame, but we are coming into this with good form, and hopefully we can continue that at St Mary's on Tuesday. And we've done well. We've got 13 points out of 15 available in the last 5 games. We need to continue that by getting results and climbing the table. Otherwise, this run, as good as it was, wouldn't have been good enough if we just had climbed to 10th and then didn't rise any further. That's the key now, is to try and get results against Southampton. Hopefully get a result against Man United. I know they've gone a year or over a year now without losing an away game in the Premier League. So it is going to be tough, but hopefully we can do well, and hopefully we are capable enough of beating these sides and getting some points. If you had to ask me for a prediction, I think maybe 9 points from 15 I'd be satisfied. That would be 2 losses, and maybe that's against Villa and Manchester United. I think maybe the Leeds and Wolves games and Southampton games, maybe we can get results from. Wolves have been poor this season. Leeds are leaked goals, but Leeds will be intense when we face them, so that will be tough. And Southampton beat Liverpool recently, so it will be a tough run of fixtures, but we just need to hope that we get into these games and show that this run wasn't just a very good run and we are actually on the up. So hopefully we can do that. And to answer the other question as well, who's my player of the season? I think there's 4 candidates: Saka, Gabriel, Tierney and Leno. But I think it's clear for me that Bukayo Saka is the player of the season. I think he's been fantastic. He's just evolved on the right. He's added goals to his game now. And this is the second year that you would want from someone who had a breakout year last year. It's just to keep developing upwards. The trajectory is still going upwards, and I think he's been our best player. I think you can just tell is that people are not talking about him as much as last season. Everyone's talking about Smith Rowe. But the reason why people are not talking about Saka is because they already know he's a great player, and that's a testament to him. He's obviously now got an England call-up. He's an England international. You saw the Instagram posts with him tagging Jack Grealish, which is fantastic. He's getting his name out there, and I'm really pleased for him that he's been really good, and obviously delighted that we signed him to a new deal. And Arsenal now are in a really good position with him, and hopefully we can build a team around him and Smith Rowe so we can start climbing even further up the table in the next few years. So thank you for all your questions. Like I said, it was a bit more than usual because it's double-header podcast. And thank you for joining me today. And just a quick announcement. This podcast is now on Spotify, so you can hear it through Spotify now, as well as Apple Podcasts, and I put the videos on YouTube as well. So there is that. Please like and rate it on YouTube, and please rate it on iTunes and on Spotify. It really helps podcasts get out there to Arsenal fans. And thank you for joining me, and hopefully you've enjoyed yourselves, and hopefully we can get into the FA Cup game and the next Premier League game and get some good results again. But until then, come on you guys.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way, and Hui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?